Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Jack Hagel. Brad Briner left a career in high finance to pursue one of the highest pressure roles in North Carolina government. As state treasurer, Briner oversees the state pension plan and the state health plan, which serve hundreds of thousands of state government employees, retirees, and their families. Briner recently spoke with WRAL's Dan Haggerty about everything from investment strategies to coverage of weight loss drugs. Dan joins us now to talk us through their wide-ranging discussion. Dan, good to see you.
Good to be here. Thanks, Jack.
Dan, the state treasurer might not seem like he has the sexiest role in state government, but it really impacts a lot of people. From a high level, what does he do?
Well, lots of things, but I would say the biggest, if you were to summarize it quickly, wealth and health. The two things that are most important to people, especially as we get older. What does our money look like, specifically the state pension, and then what's going on with our health care? And those are the two biggies that he's paying attention to.
Now, the pension fund is a big deal. That's like the nest egg for so many current and former state employees and their families. Briner brings some expertise to this. What are his ideas for getting bigger returns?
He simply wants to be more aggressive. He told a story frequently on the campaign trail that he reiterated today about his two daughters both learning to drive, saying, one hits the highway and is going 85 miles per hour. The other one gets on the highway and goes 45 miles per hour. When he said the sweet spot is 65. He described the way we were investing in the pension at 45 miles per hour. And he says we need to get more aggressive with that. I guess a tangible example, he mentioned looking at his predecessor, Dale Folwell, said at the beginning of COVID, when the market started going down, Folwell actually sold early and made a really great move there. But it was once the market was down and things were a little bit more uncertain, he doesn't believe he was aggressive enough in buying when things were low. And he believes that the state missed out on billions of dollars. Again, easy to look back and say that now, but that was one of the examples he used today.
Briner also discussed different kinds of assets to invest in, right? Not just the investment strategy of being too aggressive or not aggressive enough, right?
Well, that's what initially drew me to wanting to interview him today, and it's because of Bitcoin and his ideas to invest pension dollars into Bitcoin. He thinks that this is a good idea. And when you're talking about risk, that's about as risky as it gets right now. The state legislature was initially discussing this, and lawmakers were saying, look, we don't get it. We don't understand Bitcoin, which I think if you did a pulse of the people in North Carolina, the average everyday person, they would probably agree they don't know enough about Bitcoin to confidently invest in it. Yet a day later, and lawmakers trust in what he can do, they are talking about agreeing to allowing him to invest upwards of 10% of the state pension into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Now, I asked him about that because we really wanted to talk about this risk. I mean, you're talking about people's retirement funds. I mean, that's the serious business. He said that 10% is way higher than he would ever assume of even, thinking now very early on what he would actually invest. It would be much, much smaller than that. But he is confident that Bitcoin is the right move in those small percentages moving forward.
Well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about how Briner hopes to cover the cost of weight loss drugs in the state health plan. Stick around. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with WRAL news anchor Dan Haggerty about his recent interview with North Carolina State Treasurer Brad Briner. Dan, Briner left a pretty high-profile position in New York to take this gig. You asked him about that career change. What did he tell you?
Well, it was very high profile. First of all, we should say he was the co-chief investment officer for Michael Bloomberg's investment portfolio, everything from his personal wealth to his philanthropic efforts. I mean, we're talking about he's one of the richest men on the planet. And so he was virtually in charge of all of that. But at the same time, he was commuting to New York from North Carolina. His family lives here. He's raising kids here. He's a UNC grad. And that was a big draw for him to come back. I asked him, man, that sounds like a pretty sweet gig, though, right? To have that type of job in New York City, working with somebody like Michael Bloomberg. And the way he described it was twofold. One, he looked at what was going on with the state pension and with healthcare and with this role as treasurer here in North Carolina, and he felt confident that he could do that, coming from such a big job in New York, that there were some similarities to working with billions of dollars here in state money. The other one was kind of interesting, and I thought honest from him. And he made it seem as though, look, his personal financial dreams have kind of been met. He's been extremely successful chasing the next dollar, and what I assume is a very, very stressful job working in New York City. He felt like this was his calling to come back and do this type of work now for the state. Does that mean that he doesn't have other aspirations? We asked him about that. I mean, he's only a few months into this job, but who knows? I mean, he's a younger guy, and he's very bright.
Well, he's also tackling a really big challenge in the state health plan. That plan is facing a huge deficit. Did he talk at all about how he plans to fix that?
A couple ways, and really it's about asking for money. He wants money from lawmakers. He's going to have to go to his fellow Republicans and say, I need dollars. And he's also going to the people who pay into the plan and saying, listen, we need to raise premiums. He has his idea to do that is on a sliding scale. So the more money that you're making, the more you're going to have to pay in those premiums. But, he recognizes that he's going to have to reach out to everybody and say, you're not going to like this, but it's going to cost more money to be covered.
Now, before he took this role, the State Health Plan Board, they actually cut coverage of weight loss drugs for some plan members. Does Briner have any plans to bring them back? They're extremely popular.
So he does. And he, talking to him, he believes in them. So he, the people who believe in these drugs look at it not just, for the sake of vanity, that people want to be thinner. He looks at it as the way that, the weight can contribute to other health issues for folks. And he sees this as really not just a savings for people's personal health, but for a dollar's savings down the line as people require care for various things. The truth of the matter is, and he acknowledges this, when it was cut before, he said it was because we couldn't afford it. They're looking for ways to afford that now. It is on the list of things that he wants to do. Initially, the plan would be to have it only available for certain people on the higher ends of the need, but we'll see where that plays out.
Briner's predecessor worked really hard, really lobbied on behalf of the state health plan to get the General Assembly to inject more funding into that. It wasn't always successful. Do you think that's going to require some finesse from Briner? The legislature is run by Republicans. Briner is a Republican. Do you think he's gonna have any luck with that?
Well, it was interesting. I asked him about that, and his first words were, hey, my job is one of the least political jobs out there. And I said, well, that's great. You believe that. Do your fellow politicians believe that? Because you are going to have to work with them. You're going to have to come to agreements with them. You're going to have to coax them into your plan and say, this is what we really need. So
what did he say?
I'm not sure he really. I think that's the part of the job that he's going to have to get the most used to. He is used to saying, "Listen, here's how we make money. I know how to make money. Give me your money, and I'll do it." But this is different. The money that he's asking for, these people are looking to spend it in other ways. There's politics at play. That's just part of the game. So we'll see how he does with that part of it. We've heard from Dale Folwell before, and he has said time and time again that so even when working with your own party, it can be difficult to rally a cause around these different items.
Well, we'll see how Briner navigates that. Dan, good to be with you.
Thanks, Jack.
That's WRAL News anchor Dan Haggerty. For a transcript of his interview with State Treasurer Brad Briner, go to the NC Capital section of WRAL.com. I'm Jack Hagel. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.